Welcome to today's webinar for the Enhanced School Capacity to Address Youth Violence Program. My name is Ricardo Goodrich from the Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC for short. And as you are logging on, if you can, please just take a few minutes to provide your name and the school or organization that you're affiliated with in the chat, please. Much appreciated. All right, and as folks are doing that, so today we are happy to launch the first of a two-part series on family engagement. Now, I think intuitively, so many of us talk about the importance of ensuring there's a seat at the table for family members and for caregivers, but what does that really mean? What does it look like? And quite honestly, what happens when you encounter challenges, right? Now, in our interactions with sites, I think one of the more kind of consistent messages that's come across is really just, looking for more information and more supports on like, what can we do to increase this family and caregiver engagement? We've tried everything underneath the sun and sometimes with mixed results. And so just want to start by just acknowledging just that array of feedback and thank you guys for sharing that. And then two, to share that, kind of with your feedback, we reached out to some folks that we hope can provide some grounding and some support in this topic area. So join us today. We have Terry Baker from Nelson County Schools out of Kentucky. Terry is a licensed marriage family therapist who is versed in counseling, mental health, family engagement, and we will be hearing from him later on today. And we're also joined by Dr. Teresa Feister from WestEd. And Teresa has joined us in the past, for those of you that were on our September webinar. And Teresa brings a wealth of experience as well around trauma-informed schools, social-emotional learning, school climate, mental health, and a wide range of things that we're really hoping will be impactful and helpful for today's discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Teresa and to Terry to lead us in today's discussion.
Thank you, Ricardo. Hi, everyone. So glad to be spending today with you. This is something that I've been looking forward to for a while. And even with the uncertainty and thinking about things today, I'm just so thrilled to be talking about working in our communities and doing right by our families and caregivers and our kids. And so I'm really happy to be here with you today. That being said, just want to always share this disclaimer that the opinions and recommendations expressed in this two-part series are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of the Department of Justice. Okay. So if you recognize this slide, you've probably already heard my introduction, but if you haven't, I'll give you a quick rundown of my background and where I'm coming from. And
Teresa, we're still on your cover slide, by the way, just a heads up.
Thank you I'm going to need that reminder, I think, multiple times. All right, so here we are. This is the slide you might recognize. So I'm originally from a small town in rural Wisconsin. I was a Questbridge Scholar at Pomona College in California, and there I earned my degree in English literature, but also spent a lot of time in other departments. After graduating, I joined the Peace Corps in Ethiopia, and then I moved to New York City to start working directly in education. I started teaching in elementary school in Brooklyn and then moved into the nonprofit sector where I got to work closely with high school students from across the city. From there, I moved south to earn my PhD in educational psychology from the University of Virginia. And now I live in Baltimore and I work at WestEd in the Resilient and Healthy Schools and Communities content area. The work that I do that Ricardo was kind of hinting at is a mix of research and technical assistance. And the topics that I cover are trauma-informed schools, social-emotional learning, school climate, and school-based mental health. And now I'm going to pass it to Terry and have Terry introduce himself.
Hi, welcome in, guys. Thanks for the introduction there. And I did not know you had all those accolades. That's fantastic. So I come to you all from Kentucky. This is my 30th year being a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a supervisor for licensed marriage and family therapist. I've worked federal probation parole. I've worked social services. I've worked foster care adoption. I've had my own agencies, my own companies. I've worked directors of foster care agencies, as well as my current role is a marriage and family therapist embedded within the school system of Nelson County Schools in Kentucky. I have a double master's degree in marriage and family therapy and community mental health counseling, and have kind of worked in every avenue that you can think of. So, yeah, so if we will move on, then we'll go to the next slide.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Terry. I'm super excited to learn from Terry. Terry and I've had some conversation, but I'm excited to hear more stories and experience today that hopefully will be helpful to everyone as well.
Yeah.
Our hope for today and tomorrow's sessions is that we're engaged and connected and learning from each other. So I know that we don't really get to see your faces, unfortunately, because of the setup, but we want you to feel like you're a part of the conversation as well. And one of the key ways to do that is through the chat. So you already had an opportunity to do that with introducing yourself, but just want to invite you to do that throughout the webinar. There will be specific times that I ask for answers in the chat or thoughts in the chat, but also feel free if something's coming up as we're talking to go ahead and put your thoughts or questions in there as well. The other way to engage is through the raise hand function. It always takes me a really long time to find it, so I thought we could just really quickly practice and see if everyone could access their raise hand function. So my understanding, at least with mine, is I don't know where it is. Ricardo, can you explain where it is?
Sure, yeah, of course. And Albert's got it down already. I see you got a gold star. Yeah, if you ready to go, Tammy and others, yeah, if you maximize your zoom, for I guess a lack of a better term, at the kind of lower end of the bar, at the kind of towards the bottom of the screen, you should have an option that says raise hand, and depending on your configuration, maybe even on the side, you may also have that option as well. But it looks like we certainly have a few folks that have got it down packed up.
Awesome, everyone. Thank you for doing that. See, this is why we need instructions, because I can't even do it. That will be another opportunity to engage throughout. So please feel free doing that as well. Okay, so we're going to have our first opportunity to practice again. I would love to ask you to think back on your own years as a student. So elementary, middle, high school. What was family engagement like in your schools? Was it present? What kind of opportunities were there? What did it feel like? And then as a second part of the question, how does that experience impact your approach today? Feel free to spend a couple minutes jotting down your thoughts, just thinking through them. I'll kind of just be quiet for a couple minutes and think about my own experience as well. So a couple minutes to reflect on your experience with family engagement as a student yourself, and then how that's impacting your work today.
You know, in my career that I've had for the last 30 years, the engagement with the family is paramount. It's if you don't have that engagement, your success rate just really goes down. It really diminishes. It's very important to have that, whether it's kindergartners all the way up to the seniors in high school. The family engagement, the more that you can get them involved, the better off you're going to be. The more they can get engaged, the bigger impact that you're going to have on that individual student. And then coming from a systems approach, very rarely is it just the students or the young individuals' issues that are going on with anything that they got. It's from a systems approach to where it has formed some type of function throughout that family. And to really to get that change and get that engagement that you want out of that individual, you really have to encompass the whole family to make that change.
Terry, do you mind me asking you, and I also see some answers in the chat. If you're ready to share, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to ask Terry, when you're thinking back on your K through 12 experience, how did family engagement go for you and your family?
It's went pretty well, you know. The majority of the families that we're working with now, we are engaging, and we'll get into that a little bit more later today about what we've done to try to elicit that family engagement. We probably have about an 80% success rate of engagement with the family, I would think. And those are the students that we really can see a big change in. You know, those are the students that we see that are making a big difference. They're changing attitudes, they're changing perspectives, they're excelling, they're thriving very well in all areas. The other 20% of the students that we don't have that engagement with the family are struggling, you know, and we see a higher recidivism rate of working with the students. We'll get them patched up and then they'll be feeling better, come back in, and it just continues to cycle.
Yeah, I'm thinking my own experience, I grew up in a really small town, and so everyone knew everyone. And so there was naturally really for my family's experience, like very excellent family engagement. But I don't think that that was equal across the board. I don't think all families felt that engaged or my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and so she actually had time to come in and like be the classroom helpers, and that was really, really important for us. And I know that that wasn't possible for everyone. And I don't believe the school really adapted the opportunities to engage. Like they were very specific, and if you couldn't come in, you couldn't come in. And that kind of influenced my work when I was specifically working with high school students and I was helping them work on their college applications and make their plans for college. Like I had to be partnered with their parents. Like there was no way to do that without them, like not only because of consent, but they all had to be on the same page and have the, like aligned goals and it really, yeah, it was very important to all the work we were doing. I also see in the chat from Deirdre, yeah, the question about can your mom chaperone the field trip, right? Like that's a very common family engagement. Absolutely, right. And the movement from involvement to engagement and how that can have a really excellent impact on school culture and climate. I don't have a visual, but there is a really good visual about like moving from like involvement and like getting into like true engagement and partnership and that sort of thing. Awesome. Well, thank y'all. I hope that this was a helpful just kind of refresher to think about our own experiences and kind of how we're approaching things now. I'll next kind of move us into what our plan is for the day and tomorrow. So, because this is a 2-day thing, and I'm going to say that a lot. I'm just going to say today, and then I'm going to correct myself and say tomorrow as well. So today we are going to start by defining family engagement, and then we're going to explore the benefits of family engagement. We'll spend then the second half starting to work with a Plan, Do, Study, Act framework, which is a continuous improvement framework that we'll use to promote family engagement. Tomorrow, we'll start with a ton of strategies on promoting family engagement, and we'll use those to continue using the Plan, Do, Study, Act framework to improve our practices. So all this to say is there's going to be a lot of information, but the main goal is that throughout you're kind of moving through this process that you can then bring back to your own sites and go through with your colleagues in order to promote family engagement through continuous improvement. So that's the goal. It's tomorrow at noon Eastern, and I'm not going to translate that because I'll get it wrong to other time zones. 9 a.m. Pacific. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so starting with the definition of family engagement. When I first started thinking about this webinar, I just Googled a bunch and just kind of saw what definitions folks were using. And I didn't find any that I absolutely loved, so I just kind of married a bunch of them. So the definition that I wrote is family engagement is a shared responsibility of families, educators, and community partners to support children and youth's learning, development, well-being, and success. So the key parts that I really wanted to pull out in this definition is first, that the term family is inclusive and it embraces all caregivers. So this includes, but is not limited to, biological, adoptive, and foster parents, grandparents, legal guardians and informal guardians, aunts and uncles, and adult siblings. The second thing I wanted to pull out is this idea of family engagement as holistic. So it's not just to make sure our kids get A's in school. We're focused on a whole person in a holistic way, and that is including their social, emotional, cognitive, academic, physical, and mental health. And then the last thing is collaboration, right? This collaborative approach. The idea is that families, educators, and community partners are working together to kind of create this network of support for the child or youth. It's kind of that systems approach, right, that Terry's talking about, like that we need to kind of all be on the same page and offering the support to our kids and youth so they'll be successful and well. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the definition. Is there anything you would add? Is there anything you would change or maybe even get rid of? Please feel free to put your responses in the chat. Any thoughts, reactions to the definition, any changes you would like based on your own work, based on other definitions that you've seen. The goal is just to have us all on the same page and then we can dig in. But thoughts on the definition? Maybe Terry, I'll start with you.
Yeah, one of the main things that I always tell people is family is who we make it, you know? Family is who we make it. We're born into a family. We have a bloodline of a family and those kind of things. And then we have a nuclear family. However, family is who we make it. You know, I have two biological sisters that I love dearly, but I very rarely see them. I have two brothers by choice that I see all the time. And if I'm struggling with something, I'm going to call one of them. I'm not going to call my sisters, you know, because family is who we make it. I think it's very important also whenever we think about family to, as you were talking earlier, to think about what we bring into the picture. Whenever we're working with clients and we are engaging with them, we need to be mindful of where we came from, what our perspective of family is, because ours might not match up with what theirs are. And especially if we're taking somebody from an inner city location to a Appalachia, Kentucky location, we're going to have way different definitions of family. So it's important to really engage that individual in what does family mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. That has me thinking about like we had talked earlier, I think, Terry, like if you're working to support a student and they have, you know, a best friend who is like a huge support for them, like including them in the definition of family is like the more the merrier, right? And like that can be an
Absolutely.
incredible support. Yep, absolutely. So super inclusive on that term. Thank you, Albert. I liked my definition too. I did a lot of Googling. Any other thoughts on the definition of family engagement? Anything you would add? Change, remove? Also, no pressure. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Definitely a wide net definer. Just include all the important things. Okay, awesome. All right, well, I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'll keep us moving just in the interest of getting us to all the good stuff. All right, so now we can talk a little bit about the benefits of family engagement. Research shows that family engagement is closely linked to better attendance, higher academic achievement, greater likelihood of graduation, improved social and emotional development, and more positive school climate. These are really great outcomes, but you can see they're kind of like super limited to like academic and like school outcomes, right? So we also want to think about the benefits outside of that. So family engagement can also help to reduce school violence through these and other avenues. Information sharing between families and staff, issue spotting, and proactive development of timely intervention and supports. When I think about my own work, I also saw further benefits, right? I saw deeper, more connected communities. I saw resource and support sharing. And I also saw this trust developed. And when things got tricky or situations arose, that trust was just critical in how we moved forward and came up with solutions as a group. So I saw a lot of these like, I don't know, like relational, kind of almost like intangible things with really excellent family engagement. And then I'm going to ask you the question, Terry, and I'll also open it up to the chat if you have any thoughts on what benefits of family engagement you've seen in your work. So Terry, what benefits have you seen?
Oh, wow. I could talk the whole hour on that one topic. The benefits of the family engagement. Behavior is learned, you know. So we have so many generational behaviors that we've got. When you're talking about bullying and we're talking about violence and we're talking about all these different things, it's so generational that have been brought in and learned behavior. So whenever you engage the family, you're not only making a change in that one person, you're having the opportunity to make that generational change, which then filters over to what you're talking about for the community change and those kind of things. Huge benefit there. It also cuts down on the treatment time working with the individual, because that individual is not going to be able to take you down a pathway of leading you astray, because the family is going to come in as a systems of checks and balances to let you know, no, that's not correct. This is kind of what's going on. And then you're able to elicit all kinds of different change and movement in that family.
Thank you, Terry. Any other thoughts on any other benefits that you've seen in your work, in your community with strong family engagement? You can use the chat. You can also try to use the raise hand function. I believe in you. You can definitely do that. I'm thinking about, yes, thank you, Madison. So bringing in additional resources and perspectives. I think that was really, really, really critical in my work as well. I also we'll get into like suggestions and strategies tomorrow, but one of the suggestions that we had was about like supporting parents connecting and caregivers connecting with each other. And I definitely witnessed like that support and that like the empathy that caregivers were able to give each other that like I as a provider like wasn't necessarily able to give. Like I'm trying to convince them that their child getting accepted to a really great full ride college across the country is a good idea. I'm gonna connect you with a parent who had to go through that decision last year, right? And so that's really important. Thank you, Anna, seeing your response. I believe families can also benefit because they can address trauma within the home. They can use strategies to improve communication, which reduces disruptive behaviors. Absolutely, right? This idea of like healing a whole family, right? Like an opportunity to really work with the whole family. And yes, LaShondra, building relationships is one of the key components. And in our suggestions that we'll start tomorrow morning session with, it's like all of these suggestions are really focused on building relationships. Perfect. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Okay, so we are ready to start talking about continuous improvement. the rest of today and then most of tomorrow's session, this is what we'll really be doing is there's a worksheet that I'm going to hopefully put in the chat and then everyone will be able to access. But what we'll do is I'll put it in the chat. You'll be able to download it and then have your own copy that while we're working today, you'll be able, I'll give you time to like get in there and like put your thoughts, put your responses, etc. So I'm going to pause and just put it in the chat and see if that works. Okay. So now your task, should you accept it, is to click that link and see if you can download. You shouldn't have to like log in or anything with Box. You should just be able to like download a copy and then open that up on your device. I'm gonna just kind of sit here and you can let me know how it's going, if you have any trouble, if I need to find a different way to share it, etc. Thank you, Ricardo. If you're able to download it and open your own copy, give me like a thumbs up in the chat or like just kind of let us know that things are working before we go on. No, that's not good news. Okay. Other approaches. Let's see, what can I do for you? I'm wondering. Yes, I can definitely put it in the chat again. Okay. That's the link. And I'm wondering if I can just upload the document to the chat. I don't know if that's possible. I'm also going to try to make it a Google Doc and see if I can share a Google Doc link. How's it going for everyone else? Has anyone been able to get it? Download it at all? No.
I can't, but I'm trying to see if there's any other workarounds that we can offer really
Okay.
quickly. Yeah.
Okay, not yet. Okay, well, good thing we have plenty of time. I think I'm gonna make it a Google Doc and then share that link. I feel like Google Docs is a bit more friendly to sharing. Okay. All right. Okay, folks, I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, so I just shared a new link. It's a Google Doc version that hopefully will be a bit more accessible. Let me know if you can access that one. Oh, it's letting me down. All right, folks, the link is in the chat. So you'll click the link. The most recent one is probably going to be your best bet. It's the https://docs.google.com, that link. Let me know if that works. Oh my goodness. I know why. Okay. I'm so sorry, y'all. This is me not sending it to everyone. Okay, so now there's a link. Do not apologize. This is me struggling. Okay. So now there should be two links. There should be a westa.box. Yay! Okay, we're making progress. And then there's also yay. Okay, yep. I knew we could do it. We just needed to troubleshoot a little bit. It's totally my fault. Awesome. Okay, friends. So just go ahead and open it. You can make your own. Thank you. You can make your own your own copy. And then there's space for you to go ahead and answer questions when we get to them as we get going. Yay! Okay, I am so sorry that I did not send links, even though I thought I was sending them. Okay, but we figured it out. We're here now. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna go back to my slides and keep us moving. Okay, so for using this worksheet, I'll take us through, kind of explain what, what each step is, and then I'll kind of cue you in for when you should fill things out in the worksheet. And one of the things I'd love to name here is that we're kind of doing this as like a solo but parallel activity, right? So we're all just kind of doing it on our own. The hope is to introduce you to the process and the approach so you'll feel comfortable doing this as a team, right? Like doing this back at your site. You'll see the first step is to build a team. Like, so the whole idea is that you're not doing this alone, but you're doing this with a group of people, all kind of working towards the goal of improving family engagement. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get us started then. All right. So, continuous improvement is a bit of a buzzword. I've been seeing it a lot over the past like 5 years or so. It maybe was a buzzword before that, but definitely I've noticed in the last 5 years. And before we dive into talking specifically about this approach, I was wondering what your comfort level is with continuous improvement. So this is another chat activity that I'm going to ask you to do. So in the chat, I'm looking for a 1 through 5. So 1 is I've never heard of continuous improvement before. This is the first time. The middle 3, like I've heard of it and I could probably define it. And then 5 is I do this in my work. Like this is something I'm very familiar with, very confident in. So if you go ahead and put in the chat your 1 through 5. Amazing. We've got a 5. I love that. We got a 4. Okay, we got pros in here. I'm very excited. Yay, another 4. 3.5. Yep. 5, 3. Amazing. I don't even know what number I would give myself. I'm gonna say 5 to make you guys feel confident that I'm leading this webinar. 3, 5, 4, 4. Excellent. Oh, perfect. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Awesome. Another 4. All right. We are on top of it. This is great. So I'll definitely be leaning on you to share your experiences and your feedback and bring your expertise to the chats as well. Okay. So as you know, because you're 3s through 5s, continuous improvement is a process of analyzing and making incremental changes in order to improve the quality of a practice or approach. In our case, the approach is improving family engagement. This can be a whole program or school approach, right? Like I could say, like my nonprofit experience, we wanted to just in general improve family engagement with all of our families. But this can also be used in an individualized manner, tailored to individual children or youth who would benefit from strong family engagement. So this can be either of those, whatever one fits your context and your interests better. Go ahead and use it in that way. There are a few approaches to continuous improvement, but the one that I really like is the plan, do, study, act cycle. This is the framework that the worksheet and our sessions are kind of designed around. Phase 1 plan is a really big step. I noticed as I was making this webinar that we're spending 40% of our time on plan, but that makes sense because we want to make sure that we've got everything set up. We've done the thinking, we've done the data collection, we've talked to people, we know what we want, we know where we're going. Phase 2 is do. So that's where you're actually implementing the practice that you've identified or the strategy that you've identified. Phase 3 is study. This is where we are collecting data to see how it's going. Like, is it getting us the results that we are aiming for? Is it being implemented well? Like all of those questions. And then phase 4 is where we really get into the continuous improvement component, right? This is where we're making decisions about those small incremental changes to make sure that we're moving towards our goal. So that's kind of our cycle. As you see, it goes in a circle. So we're definitely, this is iterative. We keep moving along. But in our time together today and tomorrow, we'll be going through once to kind of experience it together. Okay. Phase one, plan. The first step, as I kind of hinted at, is to gather a team. On this slide, I shared a list of who we typically recommend is included on your team. This can include, but of course is not limited to, school and district leadership, teachers from different departments, support staff, mental health providers, community partners, families, and students. The goal is to create a group of individuals who have their own expertise and experience that ensures that not only you have like good representation, but you also have as few gaps as possible, right? You've got the student experience, you've got the like parent experience, you've got, right? When you're thinking about making a team, Terry, I'm going to pass this question to you. When you've thought about in your own work making a team, who are you thinking about engaging beyond the folks or including the folks on this list?
Um, I think that's a wonderful list that you have there. The main thing is to make sure that, as we were talking about earlier, we need to see who is important in that person's life, because we don't want to miss somebody, you know. And while we may have the best plan laid out with all these professionals and different supports, well, there may be individuals like the cook that has been in the school cafeteria that has really supported this student. There may be a certain teacher that is really important to them, and we miss those folks. So if we can really, after we have our core group that we've got that's working on engagement, individualize that for each family that we work with, then you're going to really increase the chances of success that you have there. And then if we can try to, whenever we're thinking about this team, you know, as it says on that slide, gather a diverse team. Try to have this team as diverse as can be, so that we look like a melting pot of different folks so that we can meet whatever that student's need is. If you've got that engagement team and they look really diverse and they come from diverse backgrounds, then I think you're going to really improve your success rate.
Thank you, Terry. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So now is your first opportunity to use the worksheet. So you'll see on the top of the first page that there is space for you to fill in. It says phase one plan, gather a diverse team. Who would be a valuable member of this team? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out if there's a way I can share music. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm going to give us about 4 minutes. And just go ahead and start listing folks that you believe would be excellent team members. And if you have extra time, I'm thinking about like this idea of like filling gaps, right? And if you've got your initial list, think about kind of what they cover, like what their expertise or experience is, and then see if there's anything else that you're missing that you might need to think about adding other folks. So you're going to go ahead and fill out that first question about your team, and I'll go ahead and give us about 4 minutes to do so.
I think I bumped you, Teresa. Can you put your music back on? I was trying to get the timer up and it bumped the music. Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you hear it? Or did I not? Okay, that was about 3 minutes. So I'm happy to welcome you back. Hope that was a helpful exercise. Are there any questions or anything that came up as you were making your list? Maybe if you have any insight, things that you thought about when you're making your list, feel free to raise your hand using that function or add in the chat. I was thinking more, Terry, about what you were saying, and I was thinking about the importance of talking to the children and youth about who they find to be in their family, right? Or who they find to be their support. I'm thinking also about like maybe the adults in the school that they feel most close to, like thinking about that maybe we're thinking about including their perspective on who their support network could be. Okay. Yeah, awesome. All right, I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'll keep us moving as well. All right. So the second step in phase 1 plan is to develop the purpose and goals for your team. The 2 guiding questions that I recommend using for this are, why are you building this team and doing this work? And what do you hope to accomplish? The idea is that you're building kind of like a joint purpose together that will kind of serve as a North Star when you're making decisions, when you're looking at data together, when you're making changes, when you're advocating for the work you're doing, right? That you've got this kind of North Star together. So Terry, I'll ask you a question. When you are planning, right, when you're gathering teams to support students, how are you typically defining like purpose or goals with that team?
I think it's important to take a facilitator role with that team to get it going. And then, so, if we're looking at what the actual activity is, how to get those purposes and goals, then I'd like to brainstorm with the group. What would you all like to see out of this? What would your goals like to be? What would you like to accomplish? Those kind of things. And then once we come with a large consensus of different goals and objectives, then we're going to narrow our focus down. And we're going to really try to streamline into 2 or 3 main focus and goals. Because every time, maybe I have a little bit of PTSD, I don't know. When I think about my inpatient days, as soon as I got out of college, my first treatment plan with goals and objectives was 18 pages long for this polysubstance use, depressed guy. And I remember working with the CADC, and he looked at that treatment plan. He said, "That's a fantastic treatment plan." And then he just ripped it up. He said, "Now go and do something that's workable and manageable." You know, so he said, so making sure when we come up with our goals, our objectives, our purposes, let's make sure that they are measurable. Let's make sure that they're meaningful and that they are accomplishable. You know, we want to make sure that we're going to do that. So let's make sure that we're realistic and help to guide the team in how to do that.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate, yeah, that I would definitely have some PTSD from that, but you learn. That's a lesson. Like you don't forget that one. All right. So we're going to go ahead and head back to your worksheets. So you'll see right below the team question, you'll see a question about the purpose and goals that you'd like to accomplish with this team. So I'm going to do the same thing. I will put the music on. This time I'm going with some lo-fi. I'm going to try to have like a different kind of music each time. What I would love, and I'll kind of give you a heads up right now, is when you are ready, if you are open to sharing, go ahead and copy what you wrote in your Word doc and put it in the chat, and we can kind of see kind of what people are coming up with, what they're thinking about. So that's an invitation. I'm going to give us again 3 minutes to answer that second question. Why are you building this team and doing this work? And what do you hope to accomplish? And remembering Terry's guidance about meaningful, accomplishable, awesome, measurable. That's right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play some music and put on 3 minutes. Okay, so we got to the end of that song. I can see, Brett, thank you so much for putting your goals, your purpose in the chat. Open invitation if anyone else feels comfortable sharing, but no pressure. This was a very quick, a very quick exercise, so do not feel any kind of pressure. Also, do not feel like it has to be perfect either. This is very much just a first run through, right? And the idea is that you'll go back to your teams and develop these together. So Brett said, reduce number of kids forwarded to the court due to truancy issues, improving attendance for them, and engaging kids earlier who are having behavior issues, and reducing and eliminating out of school suspension. Yep, those are really excellent goals. They're really, really good. And family engagement is really good for that. Very much so. From Albert, enhancing school and community safety. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm gonna wait just a couple more seconds just in case people are typing. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about when I was teaching, and family engagement was so important in like making sure our students had what they needed, and making sure when our students showed up differently. So if they showed up and it seemed like they were having a hard time, that we had an established relationship with the family, and I could text their caregiver and be like, hey, like, is anything going on? Like, is there anything we can do to support? Like, you know, we're taking good care of them here, but is there anything we can do? And we had like really excellent opportunities through those connections, like referring families to different resources, or like even just having an opportunity to kind of say like, yeah, we're actually going through this really hard thing, appreciate it, like just keep an eye on him for us. And we're like, yep, got you, we can do that. So just kind of having the goal of making sure the students are supported when they're in your classroom. And then from Albert, thank you for the second one, contributing to safer schools and communities, providing evidence-based trauma healing. Appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. So in the interest of time, I'll keep us moving. The next part of our phase 1 plan, I told you it was going to be real long, is thinking about barriers and facilitators. So we're going to go ahead and start with barriers. The first question when I'm thinking about barriers is I'm thinking about what's getting in the way, right? So we want to have really excellent family engagement, but something's happening, or some things are happening that is preventing that. So the one question I have is, what is keeping our families from partnering with us? And if you went to the Trauma Informed Schools webinar, we discussed some common barriers that families would report, including busy schedules, lack of trust, language barriers, perceptions that the school is too busy, things like that. But the second question I think is an equally important one, and it's thinking about what's keeping us as providers from partnering with our families, right? I worked in environments that were very fast paced, and every minute of my day was very much scheduled. And so one of our biggest barriers from our end is that we just didn't have time. And so thinking not just what barriers are our families facing, but what barriers are we as providers facing can be really, really helpful to kind of identify what's getting in the way, and therefore what we can move. So same process. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, let's see, we're at 2:55. Ricardo, do I need to pause now, or do we have a little time?
You've got time. You can keep going.
Okay, awesome. So I'll do the same thing. I'll put another song on. The question you'll see also in your worksheet is, what are the barriers for your families? And then what are your barriers for yourself, your providers? So we'll go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock and do the same thing. All right. Thanks, everyone. I already see some responses in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and uplift those. So I really appreciate this comment from Albert. A key for our team when breaking down barriers is being open and transparent with communication with youth and families, active services to youth, and staff time on task to build trust. Albert, thank you for previewing for us the strategies that we're going to be sharing tomorrow. Those are literally a few of the ones that we're going to talk about. Angela, thank you for barriers for families, language, transportation, work schedules, feelings of belonging and acceptance in the school. That's a really big one if you don't feel comfortable and welcome. Barriers for schools, prioritizing the time. Yep. Instead of one person doing it all, having a team approach. And then taking the time out to find the needs of families and then providing that. Yep, absolutely. See if I missed any. And then also from Albert, barriers include cultural resistance to outside support. That can definitely be one. Trust issues, busy schedules. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, on everyone's ends, right? Perfect. Thank you all so much for sharing these. And if you're still typing them, please feel free to keep putting them in the chat. I really appreciate your thinking here. Okay, so we're approaching the last 15 minutes or so, or we are in the last 15 minutes or so of the webinar. So I'm going to keep us moving and try to get us through everything. So the next slide is we just talked about barriers, right? We talked about things that might be getting in the way, but it's also important to think about facilitators. Facilitators are the things that are working, the things that are going well. So I have a few prompting questions up here. What have we already done? What went well? Who are our champions or connectors? And if you haven't used those phrases before, those are your folks who are really engaged. Those are maybe certain families that are in the school all the time, and so they're your maybe champions. Maybe you have staff who are really engaged, like those might be your champions. And then thinking about what resources do you have? What resources do you have access to? So these are kind of the things that make the work possible. Before we go back to our worksheets, I wanted to turn it to you, Terry, and ask you a little bit about facilitators in your work. Maybe things that you've done, things that have gone well, like resources, et cetera. In your work. And I know that's very hard because you have 30 years of experience. So it's just like thinking about an example or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to keep it specific to the current job inside the school system. You know, we have a team of a core 8 or so therapists that are different modalities. We have several licensed marriage and family therapists. We've got licensed professional clinical counselors. We also have a music therapist and those kind of things. We've got a pretty diversified group that is a core group. And we are embedded throughout the school system, throughout the district. So we're able to pull from our family resources, community workers, our frisk workers, and we're able to pull from our principals. We're able to pull from each one of those school systems uniquely to work there. I would say those are our champions, you know, and looking at some of the barriers that we've had is we're a relatively new program. So we are 2 years into this program, and 3 of us started that program, and we've grown to 8 in the program now. Then getting out the word of who we are and what we do and what we're wanting to do has been one of the barriers that we've had, is because people don't like change, you know, and that lack of wanting change is a barrier. And getting that out there to how we can improve this and what we can do has been one of the barriers. Resources, we have really partnered with community mental health centers. We've partnered with about 6 IOPs and other inpatient programs and different things, and trying to really make a network. And we're getting ready to vamp our alternative school setting into a treatment facility model and really incorporate this curriculum into that alternative setting.
Appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right. So we're gonna do the same process here. You're pros at it now. You know exactly what to expect. There's me just sliding through. All right. The next question on your worksheet is about these facilitators, the things that have gone well, the resources you have, the folks that you have. So I'll give us again about 3 minutes to fill out that question, and then we'll keep going. I'm awkwardly stopping us in the middle of that song because my first song was 2 minutes long. Sorry about that. So I'm just gonna look in the chat real quick, and I can see one response from Deirdre. Thank you so much for sharing. This is again another excellent suggestion that was actually in our list of strategies for tomorrow, incorporating in grant funds that specifically address parent engagement, information and training in order to align the understanding with initiatives in schools. So excellent. So glad that this is happening. And hopefully you can tell us more about it tomorrow when we're talking about those suggestions. All right, I'm going to start breezing a little bit so we can get to where we want to be before tomorrow. All right, so this is a free survey that I just wanted to plug. When you're thinking about identifying barriers and facilitators in your own community, it's really valuable to do your own reflecting, to in your team be doing some reflecting, but it's also really helpful to actually talk to families about what they're experiencing. And so this is a survey that Panorama developed, and it has a ton of different measures in it that are free. That you literally can pull them, make your own surveys, and send it to your families. You can see here that there's a few different categories. The one specifically that I think is a really excellent one are barriers to engagement. And so that gets into maybe what are families facing that could get in the way. You can use that QR code, but I'm also going to put, if I can, I'm going to put the link in the chat. So you can also grab it there if you are interested. Perfect. Okay, so that should be there. Okay, so you did some thinking about your barriers and facilitators, and now is the really tricky part of saying, where are we going to start? What are we going to work on first? So one of the suggestions that I've given folks in the past is to think about what is the most important and what is the most urgent. One of the ways to do that is a priority matrix. You might be familiar with this. My colleague showed me this and I was like, oh, that's so smart. And we used it with a team in Rhode Island and it was really, really helpful. So as you can see here, we've got our columns as not urgent and urgent, our rows as not important, important, and that gives us this matrix. Important, not urgent, important, urgent, not important, not urgent, and not important, urgent. Okay. When you're thinking about bringing this back to your team, this is a great thing to put on like a poster board and then have people use Post-its and place things kind of like in the matrix where they think they fall. This is an example of what it could end up looking like. When I kind of ask folks to think about like, okay, you've placed them on here, we generally lean towards 4, right? Like it's both important and it's urgent, but that's not necessarily the case, right? You can have folks who choose 3, right? Like it's not particularly urgent, but it's still important. And maybe there's some factors that would lead us to choose that. So this is one of the options that you can use. And then one of the other things, the group that I worked with made this even more nuanced for me. They used it as a gradient. And so you can see 4 and 5 are technically in the same important, urgent box, but they found 5 to be more important and more urgent than 4. And that was actually how they ended up choosing theirs. What I do want to note is that this is an exercise to help facilitate the discussion about which one you're going to choose, but it is a discussion, right? And this is just a tool that you can use to help make that a little easier, but you absolutely do not have to use this tool. It can be whatever your team kind of finds is the best process. What I will also say, because we are almost at time, is that Microsoft Word is probably going to be really wonky and not let you place things nicely, but there is a copy of this in your worksheet. So you can think about your barriers and maybe put down your ideas for what you want to focus on. What I will say in closing is if you are able to join us tomorrow, I would love for you to come with your barrier in mind that you want to prioritize, that you've decided this is the barrier that we really want to address. And then tomorrow's session will kind of take us through using that barrier and making decisions with that barrier. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Ricardo.
Perfect. Thank you. So yes, I'll be brief in the interest of time. So first off, thank you, Teresa and Terry, so much for leading us in discussion and exercises today. It was great to hear your different perspectives and really just to provide that, I think, high level perspective and then kind of infuse it with, okay, but here's what it looks like. And Terry, your visual of your paper being ripped up, it's going to really stick with me for a lot of different reasons. But I really do appreciate that image of like not making things overly complicated. And find like the simplest way to kind of like distill down points, because I think that at the end of the day, that's really important for the population that we're working with and that we want to continue to engage. And so for so many of our sites, I hope today was really a helpful starting point for some of you, or maybe even a refresher if you've done this before, but you kind of hit some obstacles. And hopefully this will kind of give you some steps to kind of aid you in this process. Again, just to piggyback what's on the screen, tomorrow we're going to have part 2 of this. So if your schedule allows, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 9 a.m. Pacific Time, please do join us. The second part of our discussion will then lean into some of the strategies. So first, again, we provided a framework for kind of planning, goal identification, strategies. Tomorrow we'll build off on that and then talk about, so what does this look like in practice? What are some of the things that you can do? So again, time permitting for all and schedule permitting, a little bit of an earlier start, but hopefully folks can be there. And then finally, when you log off, you should see an end of the webinar survey. Please just take a minute or two to complete it. We always appreciate getting your feedback. Again, your feedback is what led us down this path for this particular webinar. So we just want to continue to ensure that we provide topics that are relevant and interesting. And so on that note, I'm going to say thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see many of you tomorrow as well. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you all.